When you choose to do something, and he said it in a very simple way, a very direct way, and that is to be bold yet sincere. And that's something that I always kind of think about with everything that I do.
Hi, I'm Corrin. This podcast is called The Ache, an ode to the existential ache of being human, that still small voice tugging inside every single one of us, prompting us to change, move, grow, become more of our authentic selves. This is conversations with people who dance with the ache. Is to be bold and sincere. Because you could be bold for the sake of being bold, but
That's
you
right.
could be bold with something real to offer, and it's going to hit people totally different.
Yeah, that's right. And you can be too sincere, and you can be too,
Yeah. Oh, I've been too sincere.
Yeah.
I've been too sincere most of my adult life. That's the truth. But now I feel I've reached a happy medium, But you're right. There is those two things go to, that's beautiful. I love it. I can't wait. It's going to go in right at the beginning. Along with fuck the line.
Yeah, fuck the line. I mean, could it be fuck the line? I think that's a great way to start this.
I was
you really started it.
I was going to title your episode "Fuck the Line." I think we'll see.
I think that'd be great. I think maybe that's better way to start it. You gotta I don't know if I can talk fuck the line. Fuck the line.
Woo! Okay, perfect. That is the voice of Matthew Chuang. He is a cinematographer, a very talented visual artist, and a friend of mine. We met back in probably 2016 on Instagram. We DM'd a little bit, and then we made plans to shoot some photos together and meet up. And I can't remember how, but I invited him the first time we had ever met to meet me at Threshold, which is a BDSM club here in Los Angeles. And I was like, hey, so I'm going to Threshold with some of my friends for this event called Shut Up and Tie. And the event was basically centered around rope bondage, Kimbaku, Shibari. And in the main room of the club, you were supposed to not speak at all unless you were in a scene, tying or being tied with your scene partner, your rope partner. In BDSM, we call it a scene when you're playing together. He came and he observed and he watched and he was in the space, and I knew right then and there, I was like, this guy is down. This guy is someone that is very open-minded and down to just experience life. And then he became a friend, and I became very familiar with his work. He has shot many, many films and TV shows and projects, and one of my favorite pieces that he has shot is a film called You Won't Be Alone. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably gonna like it. And we talk on the show today more about his experience shooting that movie. Something that I have really connected to of yours over the years is the series that you did on Instagram with Fuck the Line. Do you remember, with the wine glass?
Oh, that's right.
So I want you to talk about Fuck the Line and start there, because you would just do it and just write Fuck the Line, and it meant so many different things to me. But I want to from your perspective hear about it.
So that was during COVID, and I was in quarantine in Sydney. It was when Australia was shut down to the rest of the world, and we had to I was coming here to do a film, and I landed in I think I came from LA, and then we took a flight to Auckland, and then had to wait there for 7 hours, and then that who had to come by private jet. A few of
Oh
us,
my
like 15 of
God.
us, random people, because it was the only way to get into the country at the time. And then it was mandatory 2 weeks in quarantine in a hotel room with no windows that opened. And I guess 2 weeks in a hotel room, you kind of go a little bit. And I remember you could only order one bottle of wine per day or a six-pack of beer, and that was the limit that they gave you. So I think it was trying to be rebellious to that, and also not doing much at all in his hotel room.
It was your small rebellion. Like I would see you pouring the wine into the glass, and it would, for whatever fucking reason, they had a line on the glass and you
Yeah,
would just pour right past it, and you were like, fuck the line.
fuck the line. I mean, now to think of it, it's like quite profound.
Right? And I
It can
think
be quite profound.
it's these little things in life that I notice about like people around me, or people that I, meet, friends that I make, people I work with, where something will strike me like fuck the line, and then it'll be a thread that I want to pull, and that I'm like, where else in Matt's life is it fuck the line? Where else in your life is there these like moments of feeling a constraint that you don't agree with, or like have there been any other significant moments that you can think of that kind of relate to that? Because I think the fuck the line with the glass is a small expression probably of something else, in your psyche.
I think it took a while to get there, and obviously I've surrounded myself with people who feel the same way, and I'm inspired by a lot of the people I work with who, through action, kind of show that quite consistently. And like I said, I'm inspired by that, and knowing that there are people who kind of like stand by that, then being around people like that, you kind of start you start making choices in that kind of in the same kind of vein, and I guess it kind of like started growing from a few different things. Kind of just, I grew up in Australia, and Australia is really great in a lot of ways, but it's also a small place, and it can have this kind of like, oh, you should do things the way it's kind of done here, and at a certain point when I was trying to get my career off the ground and kind of like shooting more narrative work. Before that, it was like music videos and commercials, and trying to do more long form narrative stuff. It seemed like you kind of hit a point where you can do it, but having the chance to be able to do it, you have to kind of like fit within the parameters of whatever certain people have built up. I remember another fuck the line guy, Ronnie Chen. I kind of met up with him at one point. I saw his stuff, and I was like, hey, like, really, really kind of like the work. And, he looked at what I was doing at the time, and his writing partner was also like, hey, like, you should try and get Matt onto your show. And, he was doing this show with a small network here in Australia, and then, he had a producer, and he was like, hey, meet with the producer. And I was meeting with them, and, I thought the conversation was going well. And then at one point, they were like, hey, like, we know you've been shooting and directing stuff here and there, but for this, it's TV, and you haven't really done TV before. Would you be interested in coming on as an intern or something? And I'm like, well, I think I've gone a bit past that. And, kind of said no. And then I was like, well, that's a way kind of people are seeing me in Australia. Maybe I should just say fuck it and leave. Because if I stay, I'm not really, it doesn't seem likely that things are really going to progress. So I have to kind of just take it in, make my own decision to just say fuck it and leave and go to the, I went to LA and things just kind of like, I put myself in a position where there's a lot more chances to meet people who are willing to give me a shot. And obviously that's paid off, and I'm very grateful for that. And I've done a few Australian stuff since, and once again, like the filmmakers that I work with in Australia, the director and producer of You Are Below, and they're like kind of like, they also want to say just fuck it and do what feels right to them, and by doing that, they kind of can stand by their actions and hopefully show other people, say, hey, you don't have to like conform to what they want you to, what they want you to be.
One thing that struck me, like on that note with You Won't Be Alone, and oh my God, wait, why is the other movie escaping me right now? The couple, the other one.
Of an Age.
Of an Age. Oh my God.
Yeah.
My brain just like left itself. Two fucking gorgeous movies. Great job.
Thank you.
But one thing that struck me with You Won't Be Alone, and I think you posted this interview or something, but maybe you said something about, I don't know, or you and I talked about it or something. And it was like they had been offered more money or something to do the film in a way that they didn't want to do. And I remember you saying something about it and being like, the fact that they turned down the extra money and stuck to their original vision is one of the reasons that you were like even more in on it and being like, these people are amazing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The script, you start reading the script and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Because it was set in Macedonia. And you're reading it and going, oh, is this in English or is this in Macedonian? And, I went back to the beginning of the script and there's a line that says, hey, all this is in Macedonian. And, they're about to sell the film. And, at one point before they made the deal, they were like, hey, do they know that the film's in Macedonian? And they asked, I was like, hey, you guys know the film's in Macedonian, right? And they're like, really? And they thought about it, and then they still wanted to make it, but they offered something like $6 million to make it in English or $3 million to make it in Macedonian. And Corrin and Christina, the director and producer, they looked at each other and were like, the film is better in Macedonian, so we'll make it work for half the budget that they're offering. And, I don't think a lot of filmmakers, given that scenario, it's a lot of money. Yeah. And believe me, it would have helped us. But at the same time, it's like, we all believed that this would make the better film. So we just made it work within that. Would more people have seen the film if it was in English? Maybe. I don't know. But for us, it just felt right to us. And, when you hear, your director and producer, your producer especially, choose to do that, it's like, oh, okay, they're the people you want to be working with, they're the people you want to be around, because they actually really care about making a great film. Yeah. And that's by they're just not just saying it, they're making conscious actions and choices to go in that direction.
It's another fuck the line moment. In a way. Because I don't think that's a choice I don't know how many people would have made, and it is something, it speaks to something deeper in those people in that moment.
Making a film is tough, and giving the chance to make a film with any kind of money, if they want to, it's just, it's incredibly tough. And, when you just finally do get the chance to, then you kind of want to make it great. But say no to $3 million, and it's actually really incredible,
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know. I mean, I loved the film, and I can't imagine it being in English. Like, after seeing it, and like my writing partner and I watched it because I think I told you that the movie that she and I are gearing up to make, if all goes well, next summer, is a body snatching film. It's completely different than yours, but it does involve people entering someone else's body, right? So I showed her You Won't Be Alone when we were early in the writing process. We were watching all sorts of different, people going into other people's bodies. And the thing, like, that movie just has been something that we reference a lot because she and I always talk about shadow integration, the concept of like taking, I don't know if you do any work like this or if you do any like work with an analyst or anything. I have no idea what your background with this is, but are you familiar with it? Like,
I've heard a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think the movie like represents it really, really well. You Won't Be Alone, like, because it's the idea of making the unconscious conscious. So it's like going into your psyche and finding like the unconscious things that are basically running your life, but you think, oh, it's just my destiny. It's just like what's happening in my life. And then shadow work and subconscious integration is like finding the kind of darker, scarier parts of yourself and then giving them a voice so that they're not unconsciously like making you act and do things. And You Won't Be Alone, this person moves through different bodies but goes through like violence and like different sexual experiences and all these things that like from the outside could be looked at as like scary or maybe bad to do, but those are transformative experiences for that soul to be having through those bodies. So for me, when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, this is, I think art is a Rorschach. Like when we watch it, we see really like ourself, And so for me, watching it, of course, I'm like, oh, it's shadow work. Oh, it's shadow integration. This person is like taking the like scary monster inside of themselves and giving it a voice. I don't know how far you listened on Lily's episode, but she talks about like playing Zendara and how it was like, so scary for her.
Yeah. No, that was really,
have you
incredible,
like had any moments like that as a DP? Like it's a position that's very close to me and close to what I do, but like it's not something that I consistently express myself through. So it's foreign in that way. But I don't know, like as a DP, as an artist, like has there been moments where you're creating something or other types of art that you might do or even other expressions where you were like, ooh, this is the thing that's like I'm really freaked out about doing. But then when you go into it, you realize like, oh, this is a part of me that I wanted to express that I didn't realize.
I guess with You Won't Be Alone, we had a bit of that in the sense that, you like, if you read the concept of what the film is about, it's quite out there, like you just kind of touched on it. And the ideas behind it are quite unique. And for, during our first meeting, my first meeting for the film with the director, we were like, hey, like, for someone who's watching this to believe in this film, they have to really believe in the performances. So a lot of our creative decisions with the camera and visually were kind of like always guided, was there to kind of support the actors. And we kind of started doing this thing where we never rehearsed, and when the actors came on set, they were kind of like allowed to move around the entire space and kind of just do what they felt like was in them at that particular moment. And I would adjust and move the camera according to what they were doing. So it was quite spontaneous and instinctual, yet it felt very real and honest. And we just kind of like started doing it, and it felt right to all of us, and we just kind of kept doing it that way, like.
It's another
really love being,
it's another fuck the line.
Because it's quite it's quite intimidating. It's very scary to do that for, because obviously you don't want to miss a moment. And, we had to be extremely focused. Myself, the focus puller, the boom operator, uh, everyone on set had to be extremely focused to be prepared be prepared for kind of like, like we would start in a hut, they're like doing some kind of domestic thing, like chopping chilies, and then all of a sudden the actor kind of gets up and starts following a chicken, and then it goes outside, and then there's like pigs running around, and then they chase the pigs, and then they kind of go around, and then all the crew are kind of like running around trying to hide, and they come back into the hut, and and then like God would give direction to the actor, or tell me to go closer or tighter, and then and I'm making kind of choices with obviously placing the camera and how I think the light should fall on them, because we spend time in these places, so I kind of know what the light's doing, and I kind of light with the position of the camera in relation to where the actor is and where the light is, and do I want this to be more mysterious? Do I want it to be more open? And constantly like very spontaneously making choices in the framing of it as well. And the framing of Human Below is quite unique in that we're trying to just capture what that character is feeling. So in a lot of ways it's kind of like a performance through the camera, and me kind of like thinking about what the character is feeling as the actor's kind of doing it, and representing that in what I feel it is through the camera, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And that's very scary, is because like you don't quite know what you're doing or what's going to happen, but you kind of like have to be extremely focused and embrace that, and kind of not think too much, but obviously you're thinking about a lot of things. So yeah, I guess it's really being in tune with your instincts of what this character is feeling right there.
And is that something that you are used to doing in your daily life? Like, are you an instinctual person? Like, do you move that way, or have you been historically a planner or someone that likes to like think things out ahead of time more? I mean, nothing is a blanket over our lives. Often we approach different areas of our lives in different ways, right? But do you identify one way or the other more?
I'm definitely not a planner. I think you kind of just see what's in front of you at any given moment, and you kind of like make a decision based on how you feel at that particular time. And you can kind of take a little bit of time to think about it, or sometimes you think about it a lot. But because you're working in film, it's so unconventional, and I don't control. There are a lot of things that are out of my control, and that's the timing of certain things, where certain things are taking place. A project might come to me, or a filmmaker I've worked with, and they're like, hey, you want to go New Orleans or Serbia or Hawaii, or like Auckland, or like, so I don't decide where those projects take place. Obviously I have a choice once it's presented, and then obviously if they want me for it, if I choose to do it or not. A big part of why I choose to do something is try to experience something that I've not quite experienced before, or to push myself, to learn something from. And if a project like scares me, as in like, oh, I've never done that before, I don't know if I'm capable of doing that, oh, this is going to be extremely like, it's going to be tough to try and figure this one out. Yeah, if it scares you, then I think it's a great reason to do it. Yeah, these days I've been offered more things recently, and yeah, I guess that's the parameters of what you decide to take on something. Is yeah, does it kind of like does it frighten you, and are you going to be challenged by it? And I do believe to make something great, like it's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge. Like it's always going to be difficult. And through that, you kind of go through those experiences, and you push yourself, and you learn something about yourself, and you kind of just hopefully you come out of it alive, and hopefully you come out of it feeling that you've done something good. And I think it's really hard to make something like really good. And I do feel like filmmaking, to be able to do this as a job, or just to be able to do this, is a privilege. And you have to remind yourself, it's like, hey, like we get to like do something that's actually extremely fun, no matter how difficult it is. It's something that like I don't know what I'll be doing if I'm not doing this.
Yeah, did you always want to work in film? Like what? I actually don't know this
I
about you.
mean, I've always loved films. I just didn't know it was like my parents owned a restaurant when I grew up. Like being able to do this being able to do this is like, I didn't think it was possible. And, like I said, now I'm in it. Yeah, you have to remind yourself, like, it is a privilege to be able to do this. And, my parents are still working. And, they enjoy what they do, but, like, yeah, for me, like, I kind of learned it from them, but also, I don't really do this to get paid. Like, don't get me wrong, I love being paid. And I like having, like, if they're going to pay me, to do something, and they're going to pay me well. But, a lot of the stuff a lot of the projects I do want to do have a certain amount of money, is because they are taking risks. And, to be able to get that made, they have a certain amount of money. And for me, it's like, yeah, I'd rather be a part of something, because you spend so much time on something. Like, you want it to be great, and you want it to be with people who will also feel that kind of way, and they all kind of like want to.
They want to support the work and like be there and give their all to the project. Yeah. It's a better feeling. I mean, listen, I'm a slave to corporate film, like for my day job, so I know what that's like. As working as an intimacy coordinator on projects with a lot of money, and it's a completely different vibe than like when you are working on a film that it's truly, and everyone is like stoked to be there because they care about the project and like the material. How do I word this? This is something that I'm curious about with a lot of people who are artists, and you just sort of answered the question, which is, do your parents own a restaurant? But and you said, you didn't really think that working in film or being a professional artist was a career path. Well, you didn't specify the professional artist part. I just added that, but I'm going to assume that maybe that also goes with it. Like what changed that? Like, was there a moment or like, did you see someone that expanded you or like what changed your path in that way?
I went to film school a long time ago, and I didn't really do that great in high school by traditional standards, I guess, but I was really good at like the stuff that I enjoyed. And then going to film school, you realize, oh shit, I actually enjoy doing this. It doesn't feel like work to me. I put it, I do what I need to do, and as painful as some of it is, you still enjoy doing it. So I figured, I mean, like I've had a few jobs since then. Like, obviously I worked like cleaning hotel rooms at one point, and that was a job, and then I worked at a movie theater, and that was fun. But I worked at a computer store, like online dispatch, like picking up online orders. When I first moved to Melbourne, just because I couldn't get any work, and then I did that for like a few months before got having a chance to do film again. And like even in film, like I said, I've been in part of stuff where you're like, oh, this is like I've had to do this because you need the money or whatever, and that's cool because you made that choice. Like, hey, I'm still gonna do this, but it's different when you are a part of something that you actually really care about.
Yeah.
And obviously the stakes are higher in the sense that like you want it to be great, and yeah, it's just in those films they don't have a lot of money, like, and that's cool.
I mean, it seems to not matter to you. Like you're what I'm hearing as a through line through a lot of the things you're sharing is just that, money is less of a motivator in like how you select projects. Like it seems like it's an afterthought.
Yeah, and I've made choices to do projects for the money out of whatever circumstances it was, and it's never really turned out great. So yeah, you kind of like learn from that, and obviously circumstances change for different people. Like I've kind of like set my life up in a way where I don't have a lot of other responsibilities when it comes to financial kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a question I had for you too. Is just like, did you ever encounter in your own psyche like much pushback for this? Like, what I'm perceiving and hearing based on like the conversation so far and what I know about you is you're very dedicated to the work that you do. You're willing to sort of pick up and move around and put that first and just be dedicated to that. And select, like put projects first if you can that are very meaningful to you. And yeah, was there ever any resistance in your own psyche, or was it once you started doing it, was it just like, duh, this is how I'm doing it? Or did you think like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this? Like, was there ever those moments of like, oh, I should live a normal, try to make my life more stable, or try to make my life more quote unquote normal?
I mean, it's a really great question. And quite a complex kind of, maybe answer in a way. It's like, I think to make anything good, I think if you want to be great at anything, there is some kind of sacrifice. And you see it a lot with, a lot of people, like, obviously the people you're inspired by, like you're inspired by them is because they accomplish something great, but they also sacrifice something great. And, I've certainly sacrificed a lot with like relationships, for example, or friendships here and there. And obviously I gain that with the people I work with. So I have that, but it's also like you're with that group of people for what, 3, 4, 5 months, a little bit longer sometimes, and then it's over, and then you kind of like you're on your own for a bit, and that can be like tough. The times in between, and I do travel a lot for what I do, and that's obviously. It's hard to kind of maintain a relationship doing that, or I don't think it's very fair on a partner if you're constantly leaving all the time. And obviously people make it work, and but I hear that a lot with a lot of other filmmakers constantly. It's like, hey, you have to leave your family, you have to leave, how do you do this, how do you do that? Like they're constantly asking that and trying to navigate that and finding different ways. And some people make it work, and unfortunately, it doesn't work for quite a lot of people and families and relationships.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm still navigating, and like I still don't have an answer for that.
So
I don't think anyone does, but you know, it's like a continual.
does it
You know, it's continual. Yeah.
does it plague you though? Like, do you think about it? Is it something that you like
Oh,
are
constantly.
trying to?
Of course. You know, I'm very used to like just being on my own quite a lot of time and going out for meals on your own or going to a bar, you know, which also, you know, can lead to great things as well. Um, and yeah, sometimes you do want to go to places and share experiences with people. And, you know, I do. And, you know, I meet people here and there and, you know, they've been really great. But at the same time, like, I'm not there for long, which is, you know, I think I was at a film festival in Poland and somehow I got to this event where I was quite hungover and I agreed to do something the night before with someone I met and they're like, hey, come to the screening. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. And, you know, it's like, oh, fuck, I have to go to that screening. So I went and I was hungover and then it turned out that they were like screening a whole bunch of shorts and there was an older cinematographer there who was like the moderator. And, you know, he was somehow throughout the screening, you know, he would talk about stuff and talk a little bit about himself. And you know, you find out that he's been in a relationship for 50 years. And you're like, oh, fuck, like, how do you know, like 50 years? And then towards the end, he was like, hey, does anyone have any questions? I put my hand up and I was like, hey, like, what is the key to a 50-year relationship? And he kind of like laughed and he was like, oh, you're not the first person to ask me this. And, you know, you kind of like found out that like, you know, him and his partner are quite driven in their own kind of thing. And, you know, he explained it to us in a very simplistic kind of way. He was like, my partner and I, we see our relationship, you know, most people see their relationship as two people and they're intertwined and everything's kind of like connected. And he was like, for my partner and I, we see our relationship as a triangle. So it's 3 points, three equal points. One point is her life, her career, her desires, what she wants to accomplish. Equally is his life and his career and, you know, what he wants to accomplish. And equally on the third point is the time that they have together. And everything kind of needs to be in balance, otherwise it's not a triangle anymore. And that was the first time I've heard about, I guess, you know, the individual within that relationship having their own kind of career and everything.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Allowing your partner to have that and giving them what they need to be able to be independent and so to support them and, you know, even like step aside sometimes, you know, and just allow them to be, you know, what they kind of need to do on their own, and obviously the time that you have together. So that, after hearing that, which is a few years ago now, I've kind of like, you know, art obviously constantly stays with me and I think about it all quite often. And obviously any relationship that I kind of like has any potential, then, you know, you think about that.
Yeah.
And, yeah, like everyone kind of needs their own thing. And
big time.
Yeah.
One thing that we talk about a lot, Jacques and I talk about a lot, is this concept that he taught me of like a finite game versus an infinite game. And like a finite game is a game you play to win, and an infinite game is like a game that you play to keep playing. Like it's like games that you play, right?
Yep.
So like, you know, relationships are in the infinite game pool. So every little thing that comes up, it's like, it's part of an infinite game. It's not like, oh, this one issue needs to be resolved. It's about, everything is about like the future and the future. And what you just said about the triangle too, I think plays into, because Lily and I, when we write, it's like, when we first started writing together, I didn't understand, we had very different approaches, and I didn't understand that what I'm really good at is steering the ship. I'm very, very good. We call me the bumpers. I'm the one that's like, no, that doesn't work because this, we need to like structure the story like this. I'm more like tone, overview, big picture plot, like all the stuff that's more like the backbone of the film. And then she's more like the sinew and like the eye color and the hair, like the beautiful details. And you need both, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But the way that we work, she's like an ideator. She likes to go wide and like just go all over the place. And I don't do that. My brain won't go there if it doesn't fit in the structure that I know that we've, agreed to go down. So at the beginning when we would work together, I would be like, no, that doesn't, like, I would shut her down, like her ideation, and then we wouldn't find as many things, right? And then I would feel frustrated because I would feel like she's ideating way outside of what we had already agreed, right? It took us a while, but we found this. I don't know why I'm feeling motivated to tell this story right now. It's going to lead us somewhere. So we found this thing that I had learned actually from my ex who's in design, but it's called the double diamond. Do you know this concept? Okay. It's like two diamonds connected together at the tips. And it's sort of like you start with an idea, you go wide for ideation, you decide like on what the product is going to be, and then you start narrowing it down, and then you go wide again, and then narrow again, like that. So we have a process that we just call wide diamond now when we work, and we'll just be like, okay, it's wide diamond, and that means like I'm not gonna shut it down, neither is she. We're gonna just go. And then we're like, okay, narrow diamond. And then we start going in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I think relationships and like anything is a finding, because we all have something really beautiful to bring to the table. And we're all very different. And even though we're maybe speaking the same language, like what I say when I mean like the tone and the structure might be different than what you mean when you say that, or Lily or whoever. And so I find that like most things in life is communication, and finding like not only communication, because it's not communication, it's like understanding, creating understanding, and then moving from that space. So like what you were talking about with the DP and his wife, it's like, cool, they've created a literal visualizer of a system. That creates a common language between them that allows them to then make choices in their life together. And I think that's really powerful. It's like simple, but I don't know. I think there's something really powerful about it. It's like
it's very simple. It's like almost, you're like, but I guess, simple is a good thing to just kind of think about the core of something, like you could obviously over think something and talk yourself out of something, or complicate something that really is, I always find it super useful to just.
I think so too. And what the fuck was I going to say? I was going to say it had to do with fuck the line again. Oh my God, I lost it. But yeah, I think, it is super useful, and it's like creating, the systems, the communications, like the ways of thinking, and like even for yourself, again, like, I don't know, you seem to have a system like in your life, which is like, I want to feel engaged with the work that I'm doing, or whatever it is. I don't know what you would call that system. And it seems to me like are very comfortable making decisions within that system.
Yeah, once again, like, I've been fortunate enough to work with people that I really do stand by, and I guess I feel it goes both ways. So I'm always kind of looking for that. It's like, and I guess with filmmaking itself, like the craft of it, or the, everything that's kind of involved in that, like, it's always going to keep shifting. So I know that I'll never ever reach where I want to be, because when I get closer and closer to that point, it keeps shifting more and more. Yeah. Which is great. because you can like at a like you just continue to, well, hopefully continue to keep growing and challenging, and it's okay to fuck up here and there if you learn from it. Like you have to like, someone else said something that, it's better to regret something that you did do than something that you didn't do.
100%. 100%. I've lived my life that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I think not. No one wants to fail, but not letting that hold you back, I think is a big thing. Like, and hey, you can fail. Like, there are plenty of times on set where we've thought about going this direction and it just didn't feel right, and you're like, oh fuck, this doesn't feel right. Okay, let's regroup, let's regather, and let's figure out why it's not working. And most times, like, we get through it, or like, you are gonna like miss a couple times here and there, but then you kind of like think about why that happened and you kind of like work on that. But I guess it's sort of not dwell on it too much. It's obviously, you fuck up and you face it and you take responsibility and understand why, and you got to keep moving forward in some kind of ways,
Absolutely.
in life and in film, and but I think a lot of people, it seems like they just are too afraid, they see too far, or it's too overwhelming that they don't even take like the first step. And that's what you have to do, is like, this is step by step. Filmmaking is like, every day is like scene by scene, shot by shot.
It's a good
slowly
teacher.
piece it. Yeah, like you slowly start doing things and you just focus on the next thing, you focus on the next thing, and all, and then a day goes by, then a week goes by, and then a few weeks go by, and hopefully you have all the pieces, and
I mean, it's to me mirroring the way that you were talking about making decisions in your life as well, of just like sitting with what's right in front of you, and then making a decision based on that. I do think that people are drawn to certain crafts and certain lifestyles, not only because of, the craft itself, but also that is your way of being, probably. I mean, that's a reason that I was drawn to film also, because I'm someone that I never wanted to have a 10-year plan. I never wanted to have a 5-year plan. Like, I wanted to feel something. Like, I wanted to have an experience and put myself to the test in that way, and be like, can I handle, like, what would this be like? Can I do it? And try, and try to do it and see what.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that the whole 5-year plan thing, because like, if you asked me 5 years ago what I think I would be in this position, probably not. Like, even before that, like, I guess that's the beauty of this thing, is like, oh, I didn't know I could get asked to be a part of something like this. I just didn't know, or I didn't know a film about witches, which is not something that I had thought about, and then this came across, like, whoa, what the fuck is this? This is kind of interesting. Like, it's so, like I said, you can't, there's a lot of things you can't control, so you kind of have to just lean into that, and, things kind of like present themselves.
And then sometimes you take action and you say, fuck the line.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You have to, you have to make choices to be able to lead to more things, And, I'm a DP, so like, the projects are kind of always at a certain point before they come to me. I think it's incredibly harder for a writer or a director, someone to create that from scratch. Like, and that's why I have a lot of respect for directors, and a big supporter of allowing the director to make the film they want to make in the way they want to make it. And that's obviously something we'll learn on You and Below. With Corrin, is like, we made that in a very unconventional way, and a lot of other people will be like, hey, you guys can't do it that way, or you have to like you know, you have to do it like this. You got to write a shot list. You got to do storyboards. You got to, you know, like, oh, you should do it this way, but it's easier for the crew or whatever. And you're like, well, we feel like this is the most interesting way for this particular project. And what we ask for is for the crew to be extremely focused and present with us. And, you know, I could tell, like, the crew in Serbia, like, they were like, what the fuck is going on? But then after doing it a few times, they're like, oh, fuck, we understand why we're doing it this way. Is because it makes you feel a certain way. And it leads to be able to finding this is like a moment that none of us would ever, like, if we thought about it and we planned it, it could feel contrived, whereas it felt way more spontaneous and real and honest, because it just happens and we're all kind of like connecting with the actor, myself, the light, the production design, like everything's kind of connecting to have a moment that kind of feels real, and that's all we've got to pushing for. And once you experience it, then you kind of want to keep looking for it and keep chasing it and keep creating chances for it to happen again. I think is the big thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. I learned that performing with Toledo. You came, right, to Petite?
Yeah.
That show's all improvisational, and it changed like
that's incredible. Yeah, right.
everything about how I think about making art. Because like there's a container, you know, it's the show or like your guys' movie. There's a certain container of like, okay, this is the story, but then creating these, like you said, spaces within the container for magic to happen, for something to be like pulled down from like source or whatever. Like, do you have any metaphysical beliefs? Like, are you just like straight atheists? Like, I don't know about you and spirituality. Like, do you think it's coming from somewhere like that everything's connected or anything like that?
I think there is something that's kind of like in play. What that is, I can't, you know, I couldn't pinpoint or, you know, but I guess there is something, and you kind of do feel it. I guess I feel it most when I'm connecting with people who feel the same. And I don't know if that's like how you describe that, if it's like, I don't know, but there are times where you're with people, you're doing something together, and it just feels like, oh, this feels right. And, you know, it just feels right. And it just feels natural and not forced, and very, very present. And yeah, that can come very spontaneously, or, you know, or you have to work on it.
That's sort of my version of what I call like touching God or like seeing God. Like I was raised super religious, but like I'm not religious now. And for me, like the most profound moments in my life have been like in that room with Toledo, like improvising and like it just goes well, or like on set, like making something, directing something and being like, this is just like coming together, like, and people, everyone feels that palpable energy in the room. Or like connecting with a friend, like meeting someone and you start getting into a deep conversation. That's right, and you're like, yeah, that's like my God, you know, in a way.
I like that God.
It's a good God. Thank you for listening to The Ache. This podcast is produced by myself, Corrin Evans, and Alexis Murphy. All the music you hear is original compositions by my friend Peter Colombo. All other pertinent information will be linked in the show notes, and thank you for listening.